Hi. So we jump right into it. First of all, we're very, very happy to be here. As NIS said, the European Commission is funding a lot of projects on this topic of biodiversity solutions. And we're happy to have nature and also the second session here with the Pavilion today. And we're going to talk about bridging global perspective on transformative change towards the positive economy. This is very important for us because if we're coming to Colombia, we want to engage with everybody to start this conversation, right? It's being studied in a European project, but it's very, very important to engage and hear the voices and both perspectives. So I'm not going to present each of the speakers because they can present themselves better than I can. And so I'm just going to give a little bit of context. There is something called the EU Nature-Based Solutions Task Force 3, and it's being actually facilitated by the National Nature Project. And this task force actually has representatives from many EU-funded horizon projects. And we have many work streams in the task force. One is about mapping financial instruments and business models. The other is about economic valuation of nature-based solutions. The other is about policy and regulation, because we cannot do this work without engaging with policymakers. Business is very important. There's the role of technology and engaging citizens, but also environmental. And actually, some of the works now to produce another one of this. So a very, very up-to-date one with the outputs from many projects. And this is foreseen for 2025. And it's going to be led for the project Invest for Nature. And it's essential for us to use towards the diverse global perspective in this application. So with this, I will pass the word to Siobhan McCrae. She's the coordinator of the Go Nature Positive project, and she's going to walk us through in real time what is nature positive. Thank you, Daniela. You're all very welcome. So first of all, you will find on your seat, you will find these 5 key messages that we have just to summarize. This is probably a consultation which we launched last week on what is framing the nature positive economy. So I'll run through these 5 messages now, but I'd really love if you could scan the QR code and let's make this interactive. So as we go through the key messages, you will be able to see on the this will take you through to our website, and if you go down to the very bottom, there's a click here for feedback. So if you open that up, you can go with me through this and give us your feedback if you think this works, if this doesn't work. Because as Daniela said, this was a concept led by Oxford University, or shout out to Mia and Joe, Bob, and by Orbis University, again, shout out to Marianne Anderson. But this is a concept where we really need to understand, does this framing work all over the world? And this is why we've got a fantastic panel of speakers talking about, does it work in Mexico, does it work in China, does it work here in Colombia? But first of all, has everyone managed to open up? If you go onto the webpage and you scroll down to the bottom, it'll be a click there for feedback. There's versions there in Spanish and English. If you prefer to do a manual version, please do. So, what's the first key message? What is the nature positive economy? Well, essentially, we've conducted a large literature review. We've had a number of stakeholder consultations with different audiences, businesses, communities. We've come up with the first definition. But it's very important to say that this is a consultation. So the definition that's here is a first attempt. We really need to get your input to tell us, does this work for you? Does it make sense? Is there something missing? So essentially what you see here is a little bit of a seesaw. An ideal situation would be where a nature positive economy means that the net results of all economic activities combined leads to an absolute activities in nature towards the point of full recovery. Not just full recovery, but essentially we're following very much the kind of guidelines from the Nature Positive Initiative, which states take the baseline as 2020 and basically they continue to progress towards the point where nature is fully restored. It's still a bit of a nebulous area, but essentially the direction of travel is to switch the balance from nature negative to nature positive activities, because as we know at the moment, our planet is out of kilter with economic activities and degradation of nature. So activities, we say nature negative activities, like for example, in an agricultural context, monoculture, plantations and so on. In an urban context, we had a session just a moment ago on, for example, the use of building materials, a lot of following circular economy principles and so on. And positive. So we've got some wonderful examples of nature positive activities that we want to hear about now, so we'll not stay there. So that's the first key message. And essentially, what it does say, the key word here is net, because what it does mean is that if we transition to a nature positive economy, there will still be some nature negative activities. What are those? And who should decide which ones is that? So this is a very busy diagram. But this, I think, explains or captures a little bit the complexity of our economic systems and also the complexity of moving to a nature positive economy. So what they're saying essentially is that action is needed across multiple dimensions. So in order to operationalize the nature positive economy, we've identified as key actors. So you can see we have got NGOs, citizens, and we've got particular emphasis on most impact on changes in nature. Standards bodies, policymakers, very important. Research and academic partners, businesses, including small businesses. And we've tried that we have identified a subset of businesses of nature-based enterprises. And they are working very much with and for nature. So their main motivation is, yes, of course, they want to make a bit of money, have a good livelihood for their families, but they want to work with nature and for nature. So we think they could be very important players in a nature positive economy. We've identified a number of sectors which we think have, from research, have an outsized impact on nature negative economic activities. And those are the sectors that we think we should really prioritise in terms of transitioning to nature positive. We've identified scales. How do you address the nature positive economy? Do you do something at a local scale, at a national, a global scale? We'd suggest maybe a combination of all of the above. And then finally, and really importantly, the last element that we see as essential to consider is the equity and human rights dimension. So it's very important that communities and citizens are fully engaged in this, that we respect guiding principles and human rights, and that those who are most impacted by nature have a seat at the table, which isn't always the way today. So that's essentially the second message. I'll hop back here. And these are the last three messages. So again, if you have your form in front of you or online, please feel free to give us your thoughts on those. So the third key message is that the nature positive economy brings opportunities. So we are very much aware that the decline in nature, it highlights our dependency on nature and the risks and impacts of business loss. And this is a message which I know many organisations are communicating to businesses. But what we would like to also do is suggest that the nature positive economy also creates opportunities. And it creates opportunities for innovation, for economic activity and job creation in many sectors. And we've identified a number of sectors from technology to agro-food. And we'll hear some examples, hopefully, today of those sectors where we have positive opportunities from nature. The fourth key message is about measuring progress. I mean, this is it's a complicated concept, but it's really important if a region takes a decision to move towards a nature positive economy, how do they know that they're making progress? So we have a number of pilot projects where we're trying to operationalize this and establish a baseline for where you are now in terms of a nature positive economy and where you would like to be. And essentially the way we're doing that is working through the previous chart. So we're looking at the level of scale. And so let's say you're working in a city or at a regional scale, you're looking at all of the actors involved and what are the actions they're taking. So if you take policymakers, we're basically mapping out the nature positive and nature negative policy activities, the harmful subsidies that are currently in place, and we're identifying the low-hanging fruit that can change. So businesses, how do you measure if they're transitioning? There's 100, not 100, but there's quite a lot of tools which have been presented here today on mapping how businesses can transition. But what about citizens and communities? How do you manage? How do you ask a citizen if they're, how are they transitioning to a nature positive economy? So how do we measure? What are the indicators for measuring attitudes and changes towards a nature positive economy and nature positive economic activities? Because at the end of the day, in a market, you've got supply and demand, and the businesses supply what the consumers are demanding. So we need to change consumer behaviour along with business behaviour. And that brings us very nicely to the last point, or the last key message, which is about everyone in society has a say. So this is a key point, that it must be a just and equitable economy which respects the rights of all. And in particular, we've singled out those that are closest to nature and have a very important role as stewards of nature. And if decisions have to be made, and there's a lot more detail on all of these points in the concept note, which you'll get from that QR code. But we say these citizens and community actors have to be at the table. So yeah, that's really the key. A very nutshell, a summary of the nature positive economy in 5 key messages. If you look on on the website where that link brings you, there's lots more information, and we really encourage all of you to get involved and give us your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siobhan. So with this, without further ado, I'm gonna pass the word to Juan Camilo. And you can use that little thing to, you're gonna not use slides, okay, so you don't need that little thing.
Hi everyone, I'm Juan Camilo Cárdenas. I'm at the School of Economics at the University of Los Andes here in Colombia, and I'm the director of the Sustainable Development Goals for Latin America and the Caribbean, and I'm also part of the Earth Commission right now. And I mentioned those because they're going to be linked with the few remarks that I want to say, linking to what you just heard regarding these 5 messages, key points, and what Siobhan just mentioned. I think I'm going to link to a few of those. And let me start with the issue of multiple scales. This is definitely something that we need to do. And for that reason, it brings several challenges. One first challenge is that when we say multiple scales and we have to go all the way up to the global scale, it gets complicated. The global scale gets complicated because the governance of the global scale has its particularities. We don't have a planetary police that goes after countries that don't behave. National sovereignty allows countries to do whatever they want. But we have the possibilities of creating collective action spaces among countries. And there is proof and there is evidence that sometimes collective action works at that global scale. Go down all the way to the national level, subnational level, to the local scale. And that's where we have learned most. And we have understood much better these days, because of knowledge accumulated over decades of work, why is it that many local communities have been successful in creating the collective action needed for protecting their own local commons, their own natural systems, their own ecosystems? And for those reasons, the research is quite strong in showing how humans have the capacity to engage in collaboration, to engage in cooperation and collective action. And the work of Elinor Ostrom precisely is about showing how that works, how she understood the principles that local communities are using to be able to solve this collective action problem at the local level. And in fact, I'm linking this because a nature positive economy, whether it is through the market or through the state, it's going to require collective action in some form or another. It's going to require cooperation and collaboration among actors at that local level. But the point I want to make with that is that Yes, it is true that we have understood how local communities have solved the problems. Many already existing nature positive solutions are based on local communities who have managed to adapt to their environments for decades, and they have figured it out. And we have understood that, and we have documented that, and we understand now all the mechanisms that make these local communities, and in many cases, indigenous communities, campesino communities, Afro-descendant communities, ancestral communities in general, how they have adapted over decades of time to solve this local commons problem. The point I want to make is that that is not enough anymore. It is not enough that we allow local communities to solve their own local commons problems because of climate change, biodiversity collapse, and all the global scale dynamics. So you can have a local community who has been able to figure out this problem, who has managed the resources, who have set up the institutions, the rules, the social norms, and the like, and they have protected their stability, social, ecological, political, cultural, and then a tornado or a hurricane wipes out the entire community. A big drought changes the possibility that that community survives. Floodings are going to harm the possibilities that those communities survive. So this is why we need the multiple scales. And this is where it gets very challenging and tricky. And going back to Ostrom, we are going to go back to the idea of polycentricity, polycentric systems. And I invite you to go and look at the literature on polycentric systems. The idea of polycentric systems try to solve how you divide up power in the different levels. And the key message is nobody should have all the power. We can agree here that if you concentrate all the power in the global level, it's going to be dangerous to the autonomy and to the self-determination of local communities. But if you allow all the power to be concentrated in local levels, then you are going to avoid the possibility of solving the global scale problems and the global scale problems that I have just mentioned as a few examples. So with that in mind, I think that if we're going to talk about global scale in combination with the other scales, we need to understand new dynamics that are transcend, that are beyond the problem of the local collective action. This includes the problem of tipping points. So the Amazon today is at risk, and the possibility of losing the Amazon is going to harm the possibilities of many other communities outside of the Amazon. The problem of the AMOC current in the Atlantic Ocean that you are hearing in the news in the last couple of days, the problem of the AMOC current it's a problem of global scale that is going to harm many local communities in fisheries, in coastal cities, coastal communities. And that's one more example of these global tipping points problems. And for that, we need to think about global scale dynamics while we learn from the local scale from the bottom up. And in this global scale, we need to be talking about the planetary boundaries. This is why I mentioned my being now in the Earth Commission, trying to think how we can incorporate the idea of planetary boundaries into this dialogue between multiple scales. And with that, we need to see how we devise a strategy for humans to become part of a different model of global citizenship. Something we called in a paper that we wrote recently, an unearthed human, how to be unearthed humans. And in that, we can learn a lot from a dialogue of knowledges between ancestral knowledges, traditional knowledges, modern Western knowledges, to sit down and think what is the kind of unearthed humans that we need that are compatible with this multiple scale, where we protect the local, but we maintain thinking about the global dynamics. Because otherwise, if we maintain this only at the local level, who is going to be figure out these problems of managing and governing these global scale elements? And with that, I think there are clues where we can go to, and some of those clues can be in some examples of global scale collaborations. And if you want to look it up, you can Google Titanic Spaceship Earth. And it's a paper that we wrote trying to bring messages from the Titanic and the mistakes were made in the Titanic, and how this spaceship Earth might avoid the problems that the Titanic had. And we surveyed a few examples of global scale organizations that are compatible with the principles of local cooperation that can be upscaled to the global cooperation level. This is with the idea that for nature positive solutions to work again, and this is the punchline, we need cooperation, regardless of we do it through the market or through the states or other arrangements. There's going to be need for collective action. And that collective action requires cooperation among humans. And humans evolve the capacity to cooperate at the local level, but we did not evolve the capacity to cooperate at the global level. That we need to reinvent. And that's the invitation, that these solutions that are nature positive need to understand the multiple scales that are required so that we maintain this spaceship Earth navigating in this Milky Way, hopefully for many more 100 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan Camilo. Very important message about the different scales. And I think we also covered this a bit in our diagram, right? Right, I would like to pass the word to Gilles. Gilles, your reflections are welcome.
Thank you. Well, I have also the keyword Titanic on my notes. I'm Gilles Doignon. I'm team leader Biodiversity and Nature-Based Solutions at DG Research and Innovation, European Commission. So in a way, I am the banker. I'm funding those projects. Well, actually, it's more 440 million European citizens. But I know this is a nature positive event, but I will start by being very negative. And well, I fully agree with all the things you just said. All of us, we are on this very small planet. And personally, my personal opinion, we are on the Titanic, but it's already too late. That's my personal opinion. So we could have avoided the iceberg 20 years ago. Now I think that we are sinking. There will be many victims, but the rich people will be on the safety boats, some species. And by the way, the iceberg is melting because we have a climate crisis. But this is my really personal opinion. I think it's too late, but we have to try. We have to continue. And I really want to also to remind the great work of NbS, because why are we doing all that? Many of the projects we are funding are were inspired by the first global assessment by NbS in 2019, where the 5 key drivers of biodiversity loss were presented by descending order of importance. It's not climate change, the first one. So it's land and sea use, then exploitation of organisms like fisheries, then climate change, then pollution, then invasive alien species. Climate change is increasing and could become the first source of biodiversity loss within 10, 15 years, but it's still land and sea use changes, meaning agriculture, urbanization, and then overexploitation of organisms, it's overfishing. So we have to change all that. But also we have the climate crisis, we have the nature crisis, and nature is our ally to solve the climate crisis, and we are destroying it. And it's a triple crisis because you have also pollution. So for us at the European Commission with the EU Green Deal, more and more we integrated all that. So we want to have Europe as a climate neutral continent, a zero pollution action plan. Good luck, but this is the objective. And now we start to integrate also the concept of nature positive. So it's really climate neutral, zero pollution. Positive, it's not to have more biomass, it's really to have more biodiversity. And for the moment, there is no European Commission definition of nature positive, but we are using it more and more. So we are working on a definition. So this is why we have this project. But you see that we have already transformative action, nature positive on the EU Pavilion. And also the key message from the first global assessment on biodiversity by NbS was transformative to change, all of us on this planet. And we have also to integrate the latest assessment by NbS on the values of nature, how we value nature, the use of wild species, etc. Sorry. I'm trying to. Yeah, okay. There is also a big issue is if we want to solve the biodiversity crisis at COP15, it was clear that we need on this planet 700 billion per year for biodiversity, 700 billions. And the commitments made by the parties were 200 billions, meaning that we need to have more money on the table for nature. So not from public money, but also the private sector. So we really need to have companies, the entire business system, so banks, insurance companies to be on board. And more are joining the fight, but we need many more. And also when I say that all of us, we need to change, we will never succeed, never, if we do not have the farmers with us, if we do not have the urban planners, the foresters, the fishermen. Everybody has to join the fight for nature, because actually half of the GDP on this planet is directly linked to biodiversity. And if we take into account all the indirect links, it's even more. It could be up to 70%. So we really depend on nature, on our economy, and also our health, the oxygen we are breathing. So to come back to the definition of nature positive, actually, for the moment, there is no global definition of nature positive. So you have the fantastic work by the Nature Positive Initiative. This was coming in support to the nature positive concept, which came in support of transformative change. So everything is linked. And the situation right now is that Australia, that hosted the very first global summit on transformative change, they were working on their own definition. And then we have been informed by Japan that they would like to call their NbS the nature positive NbS. And we were like, what do you mean exactly? And they said, well, actually, it's because biodiversity is a concept not understood in the Japanese language. So we use nature positive. Why not? So it's not really to integrate all the principles, but I understand my Japanese colleagues. And so we went to the CBD Secretariat asking for them to provide a global definition of nature positive, because we would like to avoid a scenario like nature-based solutions where everybody was defining nature-based solutions, and at the end of the day, confusion, misinterpretation, and even when we had the global definition at UNEA 5, we still need to have some consultation to really ensure we are talking about the same thing, but still. And so the reply by the Secretariat of CBD was, not for us, we ask NbS. So NbS should provide this definition of nature positive in their glossary. And this is one of the official comments of the EU in the draft assessment on business biodiversity. 2 minutes. So with nature positive, we need to change. And so we need to bring back more nature. But some actions that we are doing will always be negative, always. So there is also the philosophy that we could be less negative. So any action towards more nature positive is good. And so this is a general principle. And what we also understood under nature positive, you have many actions, strategies, etc. And among them, you have the pure protection, restoration actions. Clear, okay, there will be more biodiversity. But then in terms of economy, you have bioeconomy, but it's not always sustainable, so not always nature positive. So now in the EU, we are talking about the sustainable circular bioeconomy. And so really to ensure that we need to measure that. So you cannot have a green action and say, I'm nature positive. And finally, nature-based solutions, really at the core of what we can do and what we can bring to the economy. So any of these nature positive actions, policies are also bringing jobs, and so are changing the economy. Very important. I have many other points that you kindly send me, Shaban, but I think I will stop here.
Thank you, Gilles. for your reflections. No, we want to give a little bit of time for us to talk about all this. So, okay. Um, Now I'm going to invite Siobhan. No, you're not talking about the agroecology pilot. It's not so much time. So, okay. So we jump to the next speakers. We would like to actually ask for you, Xenia, is I'm pronouncing it correctly? Yeah, because we want to actually hear from other parts of the world what their reflections on nature positive economy and their pilots and their experiences. So we have here South American experiences that are going to be brought to the field. We have China with nature-based solutions from China, and also a pilot in Go Nature Positive with Sergio. So I'm going to pass the word to Isinia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. And I had a previous wording, but hearing my colleagues, I would like to say that I agree with them because we need to multi-scale. We need to have dialogues. And in the first, I would like to start with a very brief history when we were working on an assessment and service on regarding how did the communities know the concept concept of sustainable development 20 years ago. And I went to a community in the Sierra in Oaxaca, in my state. I came from the place where Eleanor Ostrom worked in the new paradigm of the commons and the common land. So I went to I start my survey, and I talk with the people and say, okay, do you know what is 21 agenda or what means sustainable development? They said, no, no, but let us to show you our ecotourism project, our organic farming project. They said, okay, they are not aware about the concept, but they are working on doing the things, the changes. This is my first reflection. It is the same for anything, for nature-based solutions, for nature positive. For me, the indigenous peoples and the local communities, we are working on nature positive since millennia, centuries ago, and we have been working because we are the most indirect depend of nature. We need to take care of our ways of life, and because we have the values, we have the cosmovision, the spirituality and governance to take care of nature. But now we have very strong messages from the world, the economic world. For instance, 50% of the world domestic growth depends on nature and the ecosystem service or nature contributions to people has the best concept this. So at the local and the global level, we are highly dependent of nature, and we need to work together for a more positive nature. But we need to understand that the world is diverse. We are here celebrating the diversity. So in the first moment, I think maybe we can have the global definition, but we need to adapt to our cosmovisions, our vision of what means the nature positive. This is one of my main reflections. And the second one, we need to face, of course, the triple or triple crisis, or crisis, sorry, at the multi-scales. And we need to work together for facing pollution. And as I mentioned in many forums, we need to work at the same level or more deeply with the three Rio daughters, because we are forgetting the soils, and the soils are the base of the life, and the most the highly diverse biodiversities on the soil, and we are losing the soils. We are becoming in a big desert, even in Amazonas region, and we have lands with have been changed from the beautiful and rich tropical rainforest to soil, to deserts and monocultures, and we need to take into account this. And for the IPLCs, we we are very happy to have here at the first moments to build the nature positive concept, because we want to be included and we want to be taking account according our vision. Sometimes we need more time to think about a new concept, a new idea, a new proposal, but it is important to take in account our culture and to work on a culturally adequate way. Of course, we are economists too, and we are a very smart economist because we are taking care of the future, taking care of our food systems, our forest, and all the resources. And of course, we want to work on the sustainable development and of economic growth, but in a very good way, in harmony and reciprocity with nature. But we need some conditions, as the global assessment mentioned. IPBE's global assessment mentions or states that we need to have more rights over our lands, our resources. We need more the recognition of the free prior and informed consent, and we want to be the partners, not the recipients of charity, sorry, or some kind of help. I need sometimes some people told me, "Oh, you are asking for charity." Not. If we assess and if we have a process to make the accountability or the bill on how much is the value of the domestication, diversification, and conservation that we are working with as indigenous peoples, the balance is wow, the Western world, indigenous people. So, finally, I would like to invite you to. We are talking about nature positive. We need to be positive. We don't have another way. We need to be positive. If we don't have will, or if we don't have happiness, we cannot to do here in this planet. While this planet is alive, we need to be positive because we need to think in the future generations. In some communities, in my people, we think about the 7, 6 generations before taking or making a decision. And as I mentioned also, just for to close, um, we need to be positive, and we trust, and we are open to dialogue and to work together. It's a time of co-production of knowledge, or co-production of different systems and initiatives. And as Juan Camilo mentioned, we need to work at multi-scales. Thank you very much. In my language is Estiocho in Zapotec from the South Mexico.
Yesenia, thanks so much for your contribution. Beautiful Spanish. Like, yeah. And now I would like to give the word to Boya from Client Earth. Boya, I think you need your slides, right?
Yes.
To come up. So we might need a little bit of a hustle for our team there. But whereas, yeah? We can do the following. Whereas the team is putting up the slides, we can ask if there are any questions from you for the moment. Also for Gilles and João Camilo. Not yet? Not warmed up yet? There is one there. I know, when you open the box, the first one asks and then everybody jumps in.
It's not a question, it's more a opinion discussion for you. I think that we all agree that actually we need to talk more with the communities, and we need to talk more with the young people. They are here also, and they are not getting included in the conversation, and they have really clear what they want for the present and for the future. So I'm really agree with the professor from the Andes University, with you. I'm not that in the thing that we don't having a changing point. I think that we still have time, but the solutions came from the communities, and they have it already, as you said. So probably we have to think differently. The people who are in charge to make the decisions, or the policymakers.
Good point. Thank you for your contribution. We have an open consultation and everybody's invited to answer. So we want to hear every voice, the dissident, the ones that agree, disagree, everybody.
Can I just comment on that, Daniela, just to say that we fully agree that young people are absolutely essential. And it's for me, one of the highlights of COP is seeing the importance that's been placed on the voice of young people. And it's lovely to see dedicated spaces for them to convene and the energy that comes, it's amazing. I also think that as universities, we have a very important role to play in making sure that that voice is heard. So I can only speak for my own university, but I'm sure it's the same. I'm in a business school, right? I'm in the Centre for Social Innovation in Trinity Business School. And we have a slogan which is transforming business for good. And essentially, what does that mean? It means that every single one of our students, and actually 600 undergraduate students now, are learning about the climate crisis. They're learning about the biodiversity crisis. They're learning that when they go into business, they have to be responsible. So I think we have a very important role to play in encouraging young people, but not all go to university, of course. So how do we engage with the wider voice? And that's where I think there's a number of youth movements here today which engage with communities and young people at all levels. And I think it's really important to be inclusive. And if you have any ideas on how we can get the opinions of those people, we'd love to hear from that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I have a question for you, Gilles. You said before that some activities have some negative impacts and will continue to have negative impacts. So I would like to know which activities are you talking about and why do you think we cannot transform themselves to have some more positive impact at the end?
Yeah, Gilles, now you need to answer this difficult question. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I will use one example. Each of us, we have a smartphone, and each of us, we would like to change the smartphone from time to time. Not me, I keep my very old one. But each time you change your iPhone, it means that you need resources for this iPhone. And it means that there is mining. And as some countries are really looking for new mines, or some companies, when they found it, it's jackpot. And so they will destroy the forest around that place because they want to do the mining. So right now, there are also all the discussions about the biodiversity credits. So when you harm nature, in a way, you pay to bring back more nature somewhere else. In theory, why not? You had also the climate credit, the carbon credits, but we are analyzing all that, the biodiversity credits in the EU. We know that there are big risks of greenwashing. We want to avoid that. We want to measure. And even with some lovely programs like UNDP, with really the best art they can put, there were some bad examples. And really, that was really not the objective, but you just take all the monkeys from a forest that you will destroy, you put them somewhere else, and actually the monkeys are completely lost, and so they fight each other, and then they will go into the village to find food. And so the people, the local people will kill them. So this is not nature positive. So.
Can I add to that question with another example from similar to the cell phone case? So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a minute. Let's do it. And I want you to go through your wardrobe in your room where you have your clothes. And I want you to think if you could be fine with those clothes for the next 1 or 2 years and not having to buy a single piece of those. And now raise your hand if that would be possible. And now open your eyes and look around. And yet, the fashion industry is switching to 4 collections like summer, winter, spring, and summer even here in Colombia, where we don't have seasons. And they introduced that from 4 collections. The fashion industry is moving to 9, 10, 12 collections. And they are making clothing very cheap and very attractive. But to be honest, I think except for the young, because you work with the kids, kids grow. They need to change their clothes because they grow. Except for that, I think we can be fine with that. Use that example for many other things, like, do we really need to change this cell phone? Do we really need to change this car? Do we really need to change this? It's just that material mental switch. And this is what I'm trying to say about the unearthed humans that I was saying before.
Thank you. I'm, as a moderator, a bit desperate at this moment to have opened the box before we hear from China and Colombia. So let's go back and then we open the box again. So yeah, the word is with you, Boya.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Boya, and I'm the nature and climate lawyer from Client Earth. And Client Earth is a environmental law charity. We're headquartered in the UK, and we have offices globally. Nature positive economy is also a very heated topic in China as well. I think it's started around like 5 years ago when the discussion started, and people are also trying to figure out the concept of nature positive economy. But compared to nature positive economy, nature-based solutions has a far more longer history. And that's why today, well, I'm not the best person to share on behalf of China what's our standing on the nature positive economy, but I think it'd be good to share some of the nature-based solutions and how those cases can create economic benefits in China. Maybe that could shed a bit light on nature positive economy as well. So I'll share 2 cases. One of the cases is from the nature-based solutions lessons from the EU and Chinese cases learned. And that's a report actually supported by the EU-China project. And that project of Client Earth is funded by the EU Foreign Policy Instrument. And we support the cooperation between EU and China on environmental governance. And this project also supports the EU-China environmental dialogue and other dialogues. Can I have? Okay, so first case is the desertification control of the Moaz Desert. So
a little bit closer.
Now better, right? Yeah. So the first case is about the desertification control of the Moaz Desert. The desert, well, hundreds of years ago, this is a very rich natural environment in the Moaz area. It's kind of the northwest part of China, but due to expansion of human activities and climate change, also excessive reclamation and grazing, other issues, it's become, well, a desert nowadays. And in 1980s, China started to do, well, we try to implement a series of measures to control the desertification. And here is the, well, comparison graphics of 2000 July and July 2019. And what's one of the most important measures to control the desertification is actually to plant sand fixation species onto the moving and semi-fixed dunes. And you can see from the left pictures here, that's when, yeah, the local community or local farmers, they are planting this species into a pattern, into a patchwork pattern. And by doing so, they could kind of fix the moving dunes so there won't be sand continually invading local communities' life. This kind of work, I think it's continuing around 2 decades. What the environmental protection effects are really obvious, and then people start to think, what can we benefit from those nature protection actions? And that's why the idea of economic benefits came in. I know I mentioned biomass energy, and that might be a little bit controversial, as you've mentioned. In this case, we're not trying to do any land conversion or cutting down trees just to make biomass fuels. It's rather than because those sand fiction species, they need regular pruning. They would have to cut, you have to cut off some of the shrubs, so they could be better revitalized, or they can have a healthy shrub to continually have the effect of sun fixation. The local farmers, they would cut off those branches, and those branches will be used as the materials for biofuels and for the biomass power plants locally. And those biomass power plants will provide electricity. And interestingly, it also has a link to the spirulina industry. As traditionally, the spirulina, they use baking soda to decompose carbon dioxide, so they can breed spirulina. But by doing so, if you the local government support a series of measures to develop the green technologies in those biomass power plants. They refine the waste and flue gas from the power plant and infuse those carbon dioxide into pipes like this, where spirulina are breeded. So now they have a full supply chain from the environmental protection and to economic benefits. The local community, well, this also creates jobs and improve livelihoods for the local community, so that they will have a they will have a stronger incentive to further put efforts into those sensitization efforts. Yeah. So that's the first case, and I'll share a second one. This is a very interesting one on Mulberry Dyke fish pond system. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this. Well, it's actually, it's very impressive agricultural ecological efforts, and it has a history of over 2,500 years in China. So basically how it works is like, you can see the picture to the left. Yes. So you have mulberry cultivation. So mulberry trees, they will provide leaves for silk rearing. And then those silkworms, they will have feces. Those feces will be used as the nutrient to the pond in the fish. And then the pond, it has sludge and it has sludge and mud. So every winter, local farmers will dig out those sludge and mud, and then they will put it on the dike soil. So it provides more nutrition for the dike soil and provide more nutrient environment for the mulberry trees. And then in the ponds, there are actually four main types of fishes, and each of them, they have quite a unique characteristics, and also this whole pattern of the Mulberry Dyke fish pond was also identified as a agricultural heritage back in 2017. So after that, people started really focusing on what we can get from the whole pattern, and if those fishes and those silks could be framed as ecological products, so they could provide more economic attractives to the local community and to people elsewhere. That's when local community trying to dive into the whole pattern again, and then they have silk industries, they have fish industries, and provide fishery and also other ecological products as well. And the picture right is kind of what the whole system actually looks like. You have the fish ponds, you have mulberry trees, and the dikes and everything. Yeah. So that's the two cases I want to
Can you
share.
explain to people what spirulina is? I just got.
What? Spirulina is.
I know what it is, but maybe not everybody does.
It's kind of a green
Powder?
Yeah, algae. And then if you do spirulina breeding and processing, then you have the opportunity to do more, say, healthcare products or medicine products. And then it could be a very
I have a friend that loves spirulina. He says that it's the health source of all times.
Can I just say those are amazing examples? One of the audience asked for examples of nature negative activities. I think while it's important to recognize that, to see examples of nature positive activities is equally important. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need now a little mini tiny break for the team to put back the slides. Oh no, you don't have slides, right? Okay. But we still need a break because Sergio is going to speak in Spanish. He's in Colombia, in his own country. I think it's fair. So if people don't understand Spanish, raise your hands. You're going to get, yeah. So Danai, we need a little, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Here. Okay, if somebody wants to ask a question, where is we? Thomas, you also need one, yeah? Do you wanna? Yes? So we break the ice, whereas we're doing the mess with the...
I just wanted to comment the reply of the speakers. It's just because from my perspective, I suppose we can transform the consumers actually, and the consumers can at the end propose like more positive impacts of these activities. So I don't think this is like totally lost. I suppose. Oh my God.
Okay, this is South America against Europe. The positives. No. Okay.
I will give my personal opinion. I worked for NGOs before, and we had many consumers campaigns. But actually, you will convince maybe 10% of the consumers, they will change, and they will have their own nature positive action. Very good. Each of us, we should. But it's not a critical mass. And so you have really a change when there is something, regulation, banning something. And I have an example in the 70s, you had many nitrates in the powder to wash your clothes. And the rivers in Europe were very polluted. All the fish were dead, etc. No salmon, no sturgeon anymore. And then there was at one moment a regulation saying you cannot put nitrates anymore in your powder. And then the water quality, boom, 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 boom. It's just because, and the same with the ozone layer. We ban something, and then we haven't died. It's just we change. So there was a transformative change. But we need all the campaigns of NGOs, etc., to influence the policy and the decision maker. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you want to comment on that?
No. I agree.
Juan Camilo agrees. But I agree with her as well. We need to touch into consumer behavior change.
Absolutely. And can I just bring that back to businesses and to your point about the markets and the collections 4 times a year? This is like, if you think about who influences consumer behavior, yes, the NGOs might influence some consumer behavior, but as you said, maybe a 10% change. Where does the 90% come from? That's the marketing teams in the businesses that are selling us, and it is their business to sell us these products. So if they're going to sell us these products, can they at least make sure that these products, well, first of all, I completely agree that we need to have a complete circular economy, but that the products are made using the kind of, nature-based processes that we described earlier. But we need to get through to the businesses who are basically pushing the consumption, more and more consumption. Oh, we've loads of comments.
Okay, now we got loads of comments until the...
I agree with what's being said based on history. Sorry, I'm Alan White from the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association, but I'm a 35-year entrepreneur, and look at markets and look at consumer behavior, because consumer behavior is driven by what's in it for me. So I'll also challenge us as we look at the problem to really try and understand the audience and how the audience behaves, what we want them to do, and how do we turn it into a nature positive that puts them in a better place tomorrow from where they are today, and then market it. But it's also a little bit of encouraging or incentivizing businesses to do it, but also sometimes just the tools. And then the NGOs, I would also encourage, find ways to engage consumer positivity in action versus stop doing something. How can we turn the same behavior into doing something? And I think we'll start to see a transition, because I agree with you. The traditional way we've been doing it for decades leads to this 10% uptake. But there is look at the power of Instagram and Facebook. It is possible to influence masses, especially in the age of digital.
Very good point. I had his hand before, so I'm going to be faithful, and then I see you.
Thanks very much to all the speakers. I think, yeah. But I just want to say, I'm from Papua New Guinea. My name is Jeffrey, and like Papua New Guinea is a very indigenous country, having 7% of the global biodiversity on 1% of the landmass. And I'm been just very excited listening to all the positive stories, and I think this is something that we need to share and continue to influence. Just want to invite you all tomorrow. I'm going to give a talk here at 11:45, and I'm going to be giving an experience of a business that we started quite recently, developing products, skincare products, chocolates, from resources that we get from within our conservation area. We're currently preserving reef to ridge over almost 400,000 hectares of virgin rainforest. That includes the marine. But we work at a very local scale in terms of the multi-scale graph that you provided. Interestingly, this year we've started using these local experiences to influence policy at the subnational level. And we've been working with the European Union FCCB to develop a green-blue economy policy. So I'm going to talk about some of this experience where from community action into a national, subnational policy development framework. But at the same time, the actions that we've taken to develop these products are based on traditional economic principles, cultural values that also brings in the issue on language. Because those principles that we have are actually named in a traditional language. And I think if we're going to talk about a global sort of a society, community that works in this area, we must also look at preserving languages, but also how do we scale it up into a national, multi-dimensional scale, into the global sort of economy. And I think this is an area where, even the business and consumerism can come in. But with that, I want to invite you tomorrow because I want to learn from you as well.
And we want to learn from you. Thank you. Yes, last one, and then we want to hear from Sergio.
Jane Madgwick from the Global Commons Alliance. I just came from the Nature Positive Pavilion, packed out, discussing the metrics for measuring nature positive. So it's vitally important, of course, if we're to meet the goal of reversing the trend in biodiversity by 2030, that this is embedded in the economy. So that's why I came here. Great to hear these stories. However, just a word of caution, we need to be very careful and precise when we use the term nature positive. So the two examples I heard from China, from our partner Client Earth, are fantastic examples of the circular economy, which in some way use elements of nature. But to call these nature positive, I think you have to really reflect on the state of nature metrics which are being developed and be very precise. Otherwise, we get into a realm where nature positive is used like a slogan rather than something that we can really measure and count. And it's really important that the economic actors adopt the same metrics so that we can together make the difference. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thanks so much for raising this point. Very, very happy that I gave you the mic. Yeah. And just before I give it to Siobhan, because I know what she's going to say. Yeah, measuring progress. We have NPI in our impact board. So we are very much in contact with them to make sure we're not, working, separately, but really collaboratively. That's very important. And about avoiding any type of greenwashing and making sure that the quality is, that nature positive economy is really doing nature positive value chains. Very important point. Siobhan.
I totally agree with what Daniela just said, and absolutely, metrics measuring is really important. Is this on?
Go a little closer.
Okay. One thing I would say, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read the publication yet, but what we do is we map the nature positive economy against all of these other concepts like the circular economy, the bioeconomy, and all of these other concepts. And we've also surveyed economic policymakers. And guess what? They know all about the circular economy. They know all about the net zero economy. They know nothing about the nature positive economy. So we've got to work with economic policymakers, and we are not doing ourselves any services if we alienate ourselves and say, okay, we're over here in the nature camp and we don't want to know about the circular economy or anything else. We have to be clear on where the differences are, and absolutely 100% be clear if an activity in the bioeconomy is not consistent with the nature positive principles that we set down. But we do need to meet economic policymakers where they're at, and we do need to also explore synergies. And there's a lot of overlap between the circular economy and the nature positive economy. So I'd really encourage you to kind of have a look at the way we have mapped these and aligned them, and where we see that there are differences. But I think it's really important that we reach out to economic policymakers and we work with them in existing concepts and then advance the nature positive agenda through that.
Yeah, the concept note has 50 pages. We only saw the 5 key messages here because there is no time.
Sorry, there's an executive summary of 5
Oh,
pages.
there is also an executive summary. Otherwise, nobody's going to read it. Yeah, so we switched to Spanish. Quiero invitar mi colega Sergio para hablar del piloto de Medellín, Valle de Albura. Okay.
Bueno, en primer lugar, buenas tardes para todos, un gusto. Yo soy Sergio Aranguren, trabajo como coordinador técnico de la oficina de ICLEI en Colombia. Por supuesto, bienvenidos a Colombia, a la ciudad de Cali. Y les quiero presentar un piloto que representa además un reto, siento yo, para el proyecto, porque es el único piloto de los que hace parte del proyecto que está por fuera de Europa. Entonces nos representa un reto también para entender bien efectivamente cómo estamos integrando todo este desarrollo conceptual, teórico y práctico que está generando este proyecto y ver si efectivamente pues, tiene la posibilidad de tener una aplicabilidad en el contexto nuestro latinoamericano y más especial de Colombia. El piloto se denomina Red de Polinizadores y Reubicadores de Abejas y Avispas en un territorio específico aquí en Colombia, que es el área metropolitana del Valle de Aburrá. Un poco para ubicarlos, la ciudad de Medellín, que es la segunda ciudad más importante de Colombia, es la ciudad, digamos, core de esta área metropolitana, que está compuesta además por otros 9 municipios. Y esta red se genera en un contexto, digamos, muy específico, que es una problemática socioambiental, que básicamente es en las áreas urbanas de estos 10 municipios, había unas dificultades para las personas y unas problemáticas asociadas a las abejas y a las avispas que generan en los centros urbanos. Con base en esto, el área metropolitana, que tiene una característica muy importante en el contexto de la normatividad colombiana, y es que las áreas metropolitanas, luego de cumplir una serie de requisitos y de temas legales, asumen la responsabilidad de ser autoridades ambientales para el área urbana. Para el área rural tenemos otra serie de áreas de autoridades ambientales que se conocen como corporaciones autónomas regionales. Y en este contexto, entonces, el área metropolitana genera este proyecto que básicamente es integrar a la comunidad y a sus funcionarios ambientales para conformar una red de reubicadores y polinizadores, principalmente en los temas de abejas y avispas. Con esto lo que se promueve es que la misma comunidad se ofrezca a poner sus espacios, sus viviendas, principalmente en las zonas periurbanas y rurales, para recibir a las abejas y a las avispas que se trasladan de las zonas urbanas. Con esto lo que promovemos entonces es, y un poco ya empezando a hacer todo el ejercicio de articulación con lo que veníamos viendo, con ese diagrama que nos mostraron en las primeras diapositivas, es, digamos, apuntarle a un enfoque de sostenibilidad y de Go Nature Positive Economy, pero no solo economy, sino también desde el enfoque ambiental y desde el enfoque social. Por un lado, promovemos un enfoque de conservación y uso sostenible respondiendo a esos 2 de los 3 objetivos que tiene el Convenio de Diversidad Biológica. Estamos haciendo un ejercicio con esta reubicación de conservación y de uso sostenible de las abejas y de las avispas. Promovemos un ejercicio de generación de conocimiento. Contar con esta red lo que ha permitido es también empezar a identificar esa biodiversidad que tenemos en el área metropolitana en términos de abejas y de avispas. Ya hay una serie de publicaciones que esta red ha generado para poder entender entonces cuál es la biodiversidad y el tipo de abejas, cuáles tienen aguijón, cuáles tienen, digamos, representan algún peligro para la comunidad y con cuáles no. Y por supuesto, pues también algo muy importante y que también veíamos en la gráfica, y es que desde el enfoque y en algunos de los comentarios nos hacían la importancia de integrar a los planeadores urbanos. Aquí lo que se promueve es que la red ya hace parte de la política pública del área metropolitana y de los 10 municipios, y con esto se garantiza también la oportunidad de contar con recursos para poder financiar y dar viabilidad a este tipo de iniciativas. De manera también articulada, se promueve un enfoque intersectorial porque ya también otros sectores diferentes se han venido interesando en toda la red de polinizadores. Contamos ya con el apoyo del sector privado. Daniela y Soma la próxima semana van a poder conocer este piloto con el rol y la participación que tienen algunas empresas, cómo han venido apoyando estas iniciativas. Por supuesto, la participación de la academia en todo el ejercicio de generación de conocimiento y de articulación de diferentes actores. La participación, por supuesto, de la comunidad como receptores de las abejas y de las avispas. Y algo muy interesante también, un poco en línea con lo que estaban hablando hace un momento con el tema del rol de los jóvenes, y es que ya esto se ha venido también integrando en los procesos educativos. Ya se ha venido vinculando a la comunidad educativa, a los niños en las escuelas, a los estudiantes de las universidades, para que también se hagan parte de la red y participen y un poco entiendan cuál es la importancia de este tema. Y finalmente, en el tema económico, pues por supuesto ya se ha generado toda una cadena alrededor de la red de polinizadores, y es que al recibir las avispas y las abejas, pues por supuesto lo que se busca es que las personas que reciben, que son los reubicadores, tengan algunos procesos productivos relacionados con polinización, y con esto lo que buscamos es que mejore la producción de los cultivos de las personas, se generen más ingresos para estas personas, se genera empleo además, y se fortalece pues la cadena y la capacidad y el bienestar de la población que participa directamente en la red de polinizadores y reubicadores. Entonces, un poco para mostrarles ese enfoque integral que tiene la red y por qué hace parte de este proyecto a través de este piloto. Y un poco en términos, como les decía al principio, asociado al proyecto, pues el reto que tenemos actualmente precisamente es integrar esa visión y ver cómo efectivamente pues toda la generación de conocimiento de este proyecto de Go Nature Positive pues tiene cabida en el contexto particular de nosotros aquí en Colombia. Para eso hemos venido ya avanzando en todo un análisis del contexto local, desde el enfoque normativo, desde los temas de mercado, el análisis de mercado, el análisis económico alrededor de la red, para ver efectivamente pues cuál es el fundamento y cómo efectivamente este proyecto nos puede ayudar a fortalecer lo que ya tenemos. Y algo muy interesante que también es justo lo último que estábamos viendo, y es el tema de indicadores. Es un reto que tenemos y creo que toda la generación de indicadores que va a tener este proyecto pues nos va a permitir complementar ya el trabajo adelantado para poder hacer seguimiento y ver en qué debemos reforzar y continuar, digamos, fortaleciendo todo este enfoque de Go Nature Positive. Entonces, un poco lo que les quería contar de esa red y muchas gracias.
Gracias. Tenemos 15 minutos todavía. Preguntas en español. ¿Sí? Juan Carlos.
Muy buenas tardes para todos. Mi nombre es Giancarlo Sánchez. Tendría una pregunta con respecto a un tema que ya había tocado. ¿Me recuerdas tu nombre, por favor? Jean. Yo. Oh, okay, my question is about the integral management of invasive alien species that come into this sort of projects, because some of them work with some species that are currently used by the agriculture and pisciculture and this all kind of culture, from ranging from monoculture to diversified culture of land. But in this sort of pilots, where is this core staff working on in order to be nature positive? Where is the management of this alien invasive species? And with the entirety of the value chain, they have a lot of impacts too, to work as with the water that goes within the buoys in the ships that transport these sort of products and stuff. And for the pilot for Colombia, uh, how they are managing the Apis mellifera, because this is an exotic species here, and I don't think so. It is that nature positive in this case.
Uh, yeah, yeah, okay. You sure? Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. I fully agree at 100%. I was one of the EU negotiator on invasive alien species assessment by IBES. I will even give another example. I visited a factory in Sweden with green roofs, and it was really cool. You had fantastic green roof, nature-based solutions. And then I started to ask about the species. And they were very proud to say that one of the green roofs, they were grass plants from Mexico. And I was like, are you sure, in Sweden? And they were like, yeah, but they are nice. And I was like, do you have some criteria to check that there is no risk of dispersion? And they were like, yeah, of course we have. No. So we have to be very careful with that. We have to be also very careful when we want to adapt our cities or even our agriculture production with climate change. So we know that the wine production in France will change in the next 20 years. And so if you start to plant wines, well, to say that the grapes, yeah, from all over the world, you have also a risk to import all the invasive alien species of diseases. Huh? So we have to be very, very careful. And then there is also another risk if you want to stick to the native species, but you still want to take into account the potential impact of climate change. You say, oh, let's go to GMO. But this is another risk. So we have to be very careful. And so we really have to trust nature, the real native species. There is always a solution. And so you can use traditional indigenous knowledge, but we know that we have to adapt. But I would say the first one I would ask would be the indigenous people, because they know more than us. So I fully agree. Thank you for the question.
One thing to comment on that before we go to Sergio with the pilot in Colombia, I know that the EFB, they're also looking at species. So the pilots that there is this partnership in Europe that is one of our pilots. It's the one, let me see the last one there, buildings and construction, and it's about green roofs. Yeah, Siobhan is it's our pointer. And yeah, so they are really looking into, you know, what species are being used for these green roofs and green walls and etc. Because you can have a green roof that is a green desert. It's only one species, monoculture, if you will, and they do nothing for pollinators or, you know, so that's not nature-based solution. Okay, Sergio?
Yes, so in case of the pilot here in Colombia, the network is not just about relocation of bees and wasps. It's also about knowledge generation. So we need to know what are the species of bees and wasps that we have in the metropolitan area, and know what is the management we have to take with each one of those. So in case we have invasive species or those kind of bees or wasps, so we need to generate some management plans for each one. So this is not just a network of relocators. It's just a knowledge generation platform.
Okay. Two more here. I saw you and you, David. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Vince, and I want to have a question slash comment a bit, going back to this global versus local scale and going back to definitions. Yeah, there was on the one hand the need for a definition on a global level for nature positive. What is it? What is it not? But on the other hand, there was also the comments that on a local level, and maybe we don't need a definition because we don't know what the definition entails or what the concept is. As a concept of sustainability on a global level, we might know, but on local level, local communities might not know what this means in that specific terming. There was a concept or a definition that I liked that was improvements in the state of nature or improvements in ecosystem services. And that's a really nice one because on the one hand, it is specifically about nature, but on the other hand, also about the link and integration with our social systems, with our economies. In that respect, there's the NbS values assessment. In 2022, I think it came out. I hope you all are all aware of it. And that concept I really liked. It had this plural valuation of nature. So you have these instrumental values, the timber that we harvest, etc. But we also have these relational values. When you go out in nature, you feel a sense of belonging, a sense of place, and this intrinsic values. And this can be a very, in my opinion, maybe a good way to link a global definition in a way with very local meanings of how to relate to nature. So I wanted to see with all of you that there's not really a lot of time left. I think we can discuss definitions for another year, but we also need to keep moving. So how can we operationalize this concept of plural valuation, for example? And yeah, what are your opinions on that?
I think is this working? Yeah. So, yeah, you've raised a very good point, and in fact, we have one of the writers of the IPBES Plural Evaluation Report is a partner in Go Nature Positive. So I don't know again if you had a chance to read the full document, but you will see this language coming through again and again and again. The importance of plural evaluations of nature, but it's an interesting concept, and I will need to reflect on that because when you were speaking, Juan Camilo, I was wondering about how do we operationalize these scales to go from local to global. So I think your proposal to use those different kind of relational values could be really interesting. So I haven't got an answer for you, but thank you for bringing that up because I think it's a very useful reflection and something that we'll go back and think about because this is a consultation. We need these kind of reflections to consider. Thank you.
We have INBO in the project. Do you know INBO? They were very, very active in the IPBES report. And there is one specialist that is also related to the project that he worked exactly on that point of values of nature that you present, because I was in your session yesterday. So, yeah. Gilles?
Yeah, excellent question. It's very sad that we are all of us here to discuss about the concept of nature positive. And we humans, we just forgot that we are part of nature. So, well, most of us, we forgot. And we have still indigenous people understanding that they are part of nature. But all of us, we are. Even if we are in suit, etc., we are. And by the way, whatever happens, we will be eaten by something at one moment. So no, it's true. It's true. It's true. This is biodiversity and circular economy. You see, okay. But so,
thank you for reminding us.
whatever happens, huh? And also, I think that we need definitions, concepts for those who forgot, and also where we modified nature so much. And actually we did. So there are still pristine areas on this planet, but less and less. The human impact on biodiversity started at least with the Romans, at least, and probably before with agriculture, etc. So this is why we have the concept of regenerative or sustainable, etc. And I think she left, but the comment about what is exactly nature positive. So with nature positive, we have to bring back more biodiversity. That would be my understanding too. But at the end of the day, personally, I would say I really don't care about how you call it, but any action that you do and you have less impact on resources and on biodiversity, and if you can even bring more, thank God, do it. So when you buy something, it's an action. So anything you do, anything you buy, it's an action. So when you check in your supermarket, oh, this garlic is coming from Australia, but I am in Europe and the local producer is there. You are part of the problem in a way. It's not your fault, but you are part of the system. So you can decide that, well, maybe I will wait and I will go to the other shop to buy the local garlic. You diminish your impact. So any action counts. And of course, I would like also to come back to communication and education. Yes, we have to do it, of course. And with youth, I was young too at one moment. I used to be an activist, but yeah. Honestly,
Gilles, please don't say that. There might be activists that think
no,
no longer
I mean,
be.
I launched the Greenpeace Club in my high school. So what is important is that when we talk to youth, there will be some of these young people becoming politicians, becoming business leaders. And what is cool is to see that in this new generation, there are some questions that they do not ask, because for them, they understood it's normal to do that. It's instinctive to do that. And we are from older generation, but
Okay.
we can change.
We have 2 minutes. I'm going to ask the speakers to give a 30 seconds final message, because I really want to be respectful. I'm locking 3 people here. They have to run 5 p.m. So yeah, I'm going to pass it first to Juan Camilo.
Very simple. One of the messages that is key to create this idea of inert humans is to convince each one of us and each person next to us that there is always someone upstream and there is someone always downstream. That's it.
I suppose my reflection is that we have the solutions. We've had the solutions for hundreds of years, but we need to invest more in those solutions, because they are the future for our nature positive economy. They are the center, and we need to go back to the past, I suppose, to learn for the future. So that's my reflection.
I would say any action counts, but we need many more, much more. And so each of us, we could already analyze ourselves saying, what can I do more, but really impactful? And this is already a part of the change of society towards nature positive.
I think I just want to use this 30 seconds to respond to that question on concept thing. I think from a legal perspective, because when we talk about nature positive economy, business and private sector, they're often the key elements in the whole concept. And why people are so eager for a concept, because for example, in China, there are a lot of, say, financial products or financial incentives, policies to support those small enterprises, to support local communities, so they can get green loans or green financial products to start a nature positive economy. But if you don't have a concept, then there is a very high risk that it could get greenwashing or other, well, it could go wrong. So that's why we really want the concepts. But I fully agree, actions are important and people should act from very different perspectives. But we do have some legal insurance to make for this concept. Thank you.
And Sergio, your 30 seconds reflection.
Okay, so I would say that it is still possible to be nature positive, but we need to generate and work in network as a network, involving different sectors, actors, and articulating governance levels.
And scales.
And scales.
Okay, before we clap, Gilles is gonna kill me if I don't talk about this report. No, you go.
Yeah, just about nature-based solutions. So 2 days ago, we launched our brand new report on the overview of nature-based solution in EU and Latin America and Caribbean. So this is a summary with the QR code, and Miss Daniela Rizzi was one of our wonderful experts doing that. It's an independent report basis for collaboration, reflection, synergies on nature-based solution.